everyone, and welcome to the LatinX Business Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Gomez, and if you're looking to demystify the world of business through the raw, authentic stories of Latinx entrepreneurs, you've come to the right place. As someone with an MBA and an IRS enrolled agent license, I spent years helping freelancers, partnerships, and S corporations navigate the often tricky waters of the U.S. tax law. Now, I'm bringing that expertise and passion to this community right here. So thank you for tuning in, and you know what? It's time to talk business. Well, hi, welcome to the show. Welcome to Latinx Business.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes. This episode's going to be a little bit special, right? Because we're going to be talking about your journey, but also it's the nonprofit world, right? So many people don't see nonprofits as businesses, but I do. I've always seen nonprofits to be a business that needs to be run like a business. So that's why I wanted you on the show, so you can give your experience. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about what the Plus Me project does, please?
Sure. Plus Me is an organization based in Los Angeles, and we use the art of storytelling to inspire and empower middle and high school students. So we get to bring guest speakers into schools to share our journeys of how we made it through college, and then we get to support youth with really finding the confidence to own their stories and share their stories for either college admissions or job interviews, or just really building stronger relationships with their loved ones. So that's what we do at Plus Me.
I love it. And that's why I think I'm such a big supporter of your organization, because the fact that your guys' motto is everyone's stories matter, I think is amazing, especially in the era that we're living in now, right? I feel like there's people out there who would not want everyone's story to matter, right? So I love it, and I'm glad you're here. So let's go on with my first question. So within the Latinx community, how do you identify, and what's your heritage? What part of the world does your family come from?
Yeah, so I identify as a Latino. My heritage, I would say I'm third to fourth generation Native Angelino, so from Los Angeles. So I have strong roots here in LA and Southern California, but my ancestry traces back to Mexico. So I think because, we've been here in LA for so long, I don't really have any ties to Mexico, but that's where my ancestors are from.
Okay. Do you know what part of Mexico your ancestors are from?
Sonora.
So that's more the north, huh?
Yeah, north.
That's a beautiful place. Have you ever been to Puerto Peñasco? That's in Sonora.
No, I haven't been there.
It's kind of like a little beach town. It's very similar to like Cabo and San Felipe. So if you ever get a chance, I definitely recommend for you to go. It's lovely, and they have like a little peninsula where there's a bunch of hotels and condos that people rent out. And from LA, you can actually drive there, or you can fly. They have a private little airport, but yes, definitely recommend it. It's beautiful. Okay, thank you for sharing that information with us. And just so you know, the reason I asked that question is I want people to know where the entrepreneur is coming from, right? Because there's so many Latinos in the US that I believe that we all have super, super diverse backgrounds. And I think that's important to showcase, because in a lot of in a lot of shows, people don't really get into that fact. But yes. Okay, so moving along, what about the nonprofit? How did you get started in the nonprofit industry? Take us through your journey.
Yeah, so I launched Plus Me in 2013. The way that came about was when I was getting my undergrad at Occidental College, I started sharing my story with middle and high school students throughout Southern California, just kind of as a personal project. After I discovered my story and just really what I had overcome to get into that school, I realized it was a fairly resilient journey that maybe could inspire students. So I wanted just to take it out on the road and to share, to maybe inspire other students who were going through similar struggles that I was in high school, and maybe it would inspire them to take a different path than I took. And while doing that, I realized that students really resonated with stories, and that I didn't have access to relatable role models or stories growing up. So I wanted to just bring more stories into the classrooms throughout Southern California. And after I graduated from Occidental College, I got a job in the for-profit sector, and I wasn't happy. I was one of those individuals that hated their jobs and was miserable. And there were a few teachers that I had visited previously that had asked me, hey, can you come back and share your story?
Mm-hmm.
And when I went back into those classrooms and I shared my story, I loved it. I was happy. I felt there was a passion and I was good at it. And I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life if I can. So I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe I'll become a motivational speaker and I'll try to make a lot of money and travel the country sharing my story. Mm-hmm. But when I did research on that, I realized that, motivational speakers can make a lot of money, but they also charge a lot of money. And because they charge a lot of money, they aren't going to the schools in the underserved communities that I come from. That realization said, all right, well, then I have to start a nonprofit. So I bought Nonprofit for Dummies and I read through the 13 steps in that book, and I launched it having really no knowledge of the nonprofit sector or even business. But I kind of just took the faith and went on that journey, and it's been going on 8 years now, but I've learned a lot. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Wait, so you really bought Nonprofit for Dummies, the book?
Sure did. I still have it upstairs in my office. I bought the book, and awesome. I think I bought it off of Amazon back when Amazon wasn't even what Amazon is today, right? And read the steps and didn't really have much support, but just kind of said little by little, I'm going to take the steps to get this launched, and then I'm going to take the steps to get it kind of out in the community, and then I'm going to take the steps to just raise the funds to get it to where I think it can be, and it's been fun.
Wow. That really just shows me the strength of knowledge, right? Because it doesn't really matter what kind of book or where you get the lessons from. It's the power in knowledge and learning and implementing what you learn, right? Because and then trying over and over again, because you could try things one way and it might not even work out the first time or the second time. But I feel like that is such a powerful story within your whole story, because so many people, do go to college, and I, of course, you went to college, I went to college, and I will always, support and, motivate everyone to go to college, especially in the LatinX community. But knowledge comes from so many places. And I think that's what I learned in all my sociology classes, right? Like, you can learn in a very traditional setting, but there's a lot to be learned at work with your experience, with interactions, with coworkers. And so, I love that. Definitely. All right. Well, what about, so you don't have to date yourself, but you are a young Latinx entrepreneur. So how has that been? Have you faced any challenges as being super young in the industry or being an executive director at such a young age?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I am young. And, I launched Plus Me, I think I was 23. And 2 years later, after getting my master's, I committed full time without a salary just as the executive director to grow it. So as a young Latino in the community, I wasn't taken seriously. And, I would go to networking events and I would really try to grow my network, and people, you could tell they looked at me funny, or they didn't really think I was serious, or they would question just the organization and ask me, I think, just tough questions to try to get me to stumble or falter or kind of prove them right. And it was something that I had to get used to, and I was very intimidated in the beginning, and I was very bad at networking. I had this thing where I just didn't want to go meet strangers and, get myself out there. But I felt from the books I read and just through my experience that I needed to do that. So I was able to find some great mentors who were able to kind of get me to attend more events and get me to really get out of my comfort zone and just really showcase not only who I am, but the work that I was doing, which I think once people allowed themselves to hear what Plus Me was really about, they understood the benefit and they saw value. And it was just kind of taking those opportunities whenever I could. I think the other thing that was difficult was I had no seed funding, right? There was no dollars that we started off with the Plus Me project, where I think sometimes there are those entrepreneurs or there are those business individuals that either have saved up their own money or they're able to get some cash from friends and family, which I think is wonderful. But when you have absolutely $0 to start something off, even a nonprofit, starting from zero can definitely be a difficult challenge to face. And I think on the nonprofit side, it's even more different because, you're asking for money, which some people think is easier than having to earn the money, right? But it's not necessarily easier when you have no budget to show for and you have no finances to prove. So it's different. But
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I hear you, because you still need to show a budget. You need to show what you're going to spend your money on, what you want the money for. But, you're right. Like you were starting off from ground zero. So, I think that's why I commend you so much. Not only are you a great friend, but I think that you're showing people that, when you have a going mind, if you're persistent and you keep going, and definitely there's tons of value in there, right? then it's going to happen. It just takes time, and
Yes.
it's been many years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I just thought about, so Plus Me now has it's a logo, right? It's the plus sign, and then
Yeah.
it says me.
Yeah.
But what was the original name of Plus Me? The whole acronym, if you can, for some of the listeners who might be hearing.
Yeah, and it's funny.
Organization.
We don't. It's funny we don't really even talk about the acronym even more because companies and organizations evolve, but it's still the roots of who we are. So that's why when we write out Plus Me, it's all capitalized because when I launched it, 7+ years ago, Plus Me was an acronym that stood for Proof Learners Ultimately Succeed with Motivation and Education. A
Mhm.
long acronym that obviously was never going to become anything, but really
Yeah.
I felt like what I was trying to get across is, I want to be a model. I want to prove to the world that you can succeed as long as you commit to being a learner and you are motivated and you educate yourself however you do that, right? So it was
Right.
kind of this thing where I wanted everyone, youth specifically, adults, to understand that there are role models out here that if we share our stories and we showcase vulnerability and we really inspire students through our journeys, it can inspire them to follow in our footsteps by committing to really learning and motivating yourself to get to where you want to be in life.
Yes, that's so good. So in this journey that you've been taking on as executive director, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever felt alone in your business journey? And is there any like examples you can provide for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think every entrepreneur feels alone at some point. And if they don't say that, I think they're lying to themselves. But entrepreneurship is
Okay.
is it's a roller coaster, and you see all the memes out there, how there are some amazing highs and there are some really tough lows. And I think specifically when you're in those really tough lows, that's when you feel most alone and you're most vulnerable. I
Mm,
personally didn't have, like I said earlier, a lot of role models or mentors that I could turn to. I don't know any other young Latino nonprofit executive director that started a nonprofit at 23 that I could have turned to and said, hey, what did you learn? Or, hey, what can I do in this situation? Or what do I do when I'm in this scenario? And I think
right.
that,
Yeah.
when you don't have that, it makes you feel alone. So what did I do was I tried to find community. I tried to find
Mm,
others that were in a similar space. Maybe they weren't young Latino entrepreneurs or young Latino executive directors, but they were either had experience doing something similar. And I was able to put myself in. There are different cohorts or different professional development opportunities in Southern California, and I'm sure all over the world, but that allow different groups to come together and have conversations and opportunities where you can learn from each other and realize you're not alone and realize that together, you can work to fulfill not only your mission but help others along the way make the world a better place. And
yeah.
so
Right.
that's kind of how I overcame that aloneness, is just finding community and surrounding myself with other mentors that I can turn to and reach out to.
Oh my God, I love that. You know why? Because I always think about how when you're alone, you need to reach out. You need to
Mm-hmm.
extend that hand. You need to call that lifeline. You need to say like, you need to humble yourself down. I think for a little bit and say, help. I need help. Because I feel like in our community, so much of what even our parents instill in us
Mm-hmm.
is hard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hard work, and you can do this. And you're capable and you're able to do this on your own and you don't need somebody else's help.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Like that kind of backfires on us sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because even I can admit to it. Like there's so many things I'm like, no, I'll do it by myself. Like I hate group projects.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's funny because when I enter these like Zoom call meetings and there's all these different minds, I'm like, this is where it really happens,
Mm-hmm.
this is where the knowledge is shared. This is where, and if that's not happening, if you don't have mentors, then yeah, I would see so many people who would be like, I'm done. I'm not doing this again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you shared that story. But yeah, when you were starting your business, was there like anything you wish you knew a little bit beforehand, or in retrospect? Do you feel like, "Ugh, I wish somebody should showed me that, or anything that would have been useful for you to start your business?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is understanding that it's okay to grow slow. I think when we start a
Mm,
business, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us tend to dream big, right? We're the visionaries. That's the entrepreneur spirit in us, right? We want to make $1 million. We want to reach 5,000 people. We think big for a reason. As the visionary, you have. But I think what
right.
happens is there's a lot of stress that you put on yourself for that, right? You set high expectations. You try to reach these big goals that can seem daunting at times, and it can be extremely stressful, and it can really wear you down physically or mentally and emotionally. And I noticed
Wow,
that
yeah.
happened to me, even though it was the nonprofit and we were starting at zero, I was really busting my butt to try to get it to the level that I felt we needed to be at, right? Or these goals that I had. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just overworking myself and I was stressed. And ultimately, it came out into showing up physically in my body through Bell's palsy. Half my face paralyzed
Mm-hmm.
back in 2017 due to stress.
Right.
And I think that was a big point for me where I realized, okay, you know what? You got to pause. You have to reach goals that are realistic and focus on slow growth. And I think slow growth is something that
Mm-hmm.
now I really focus on, and I try to just bring to my organization and those around me, because I think not only will it help you sustain in the long term, but it's going to take a lot of pressure and unhappiness off of your shoulder and your team's shoulder, in the long run.
Wow, yes. You know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing you say that we need to be kind to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we are our biggest critics. Most of the time when we feel like something can't be done, it's us, right?
Right.
Or you're like, or it's not happening fast enough and you want it to happen faster. I mean, I've been doing taxes now for 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I first started 10 years ago, I was like, what in the world?
Mm-hmm.
I did not go to school for this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it was almost, I can almost 100% tell you, like, I was depressed for many, many years, but thankfully I'm not there anymore. But you're right. I think we do need to be kinder to ourselves and just know that this is a process and it's a journey. It takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, anything worthwhile takes time. I've learned that in the last couple of years that anything worthwhile is going to take time and you just have to be patient. And on
Absolutely.
top of that, let's be kind to each other, to ourselves. Oh yeah. So in these years that you've had your nonprofit, what's the financial lesson that you want the audience to take with them? It could be financial or tax related. What would you want the audience to know about either nonprofit, financials, or taxes?
Yeah, so specifically on nonprofit financials, and this isn't necessarily for everyone who's maybe starting their own entrepreneurship, but maybe it is I think it's so important to bring in a diverse stream of revenue. So having multiple ways that you're bringing in that income, right? So at Plus Me,
Mm-hmm.
we bring in revenue through donations. Individuals donate funds to us. We apply for grants and we're able to get foundation support dollars. We created a journal that now we sell. So we're able to get some earned product revenue through that. And then we have our
Mm-hmm.
services where we go out to schools and the schools are able to actually fund us through their budgets. So by having different ways of bringing in revenue, it's going to help you diversify not only how the money is coming in, but it's going to help sustain you. Because in the beginning of Plus Me, really the
Mm-hmm.
only way was through donations. We were just trying to get dollars from individuals. We weren't really applying for grants. We weren't charging schools. We weren't selling products. And you're limited to how you're able to bring in that revenue. So by thinking
Got it.
outside of the box and finding, how can I bring in different money different ways? I think that's something that not everyone always thinks about, but I think people should.
Yeah, see, and I think that's where a lot of this like mentality of like a nonprofit is not a business
Mm-hmm.
comes from. That where such a big component of it is the giving, the charity part of it, right? But
Mm-hmm.
hey, I've always seen it. I've always been like, this is a business, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what someone says. Like your business now has a charitable component to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love how you're saying a diverse stream of income and revenue because even that could be applied to many businesses right now during the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and even like, individuals out there, right? Like there's people who only had one lifeline of income coming through and that went away,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if they had several or if they had or a different way of making money or a different hustle, maybe things wouldn't be as dire. But I love that you saw that and you're like, hey, I need to diversify the revenue and where it comes from. And so with that, like, how has your fundraising and changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did. Back in March when this all hit, it affected us in a big way. But as a team, we really had to just be creative and flexible and pivot. And what we noticed is our community came through and we were able to increase our individual donations from our supporters, which we were very grateful for. And we were also
Mm-hmm.
able to just think about ways to offer different ways of engagement to hopefully bring in more support. So we launched a Storytelling Sunday initiative that you were on, where we got to share
Yeah.
stories with the community on Instagram Live. We started shipping journals out to students to their houses so they had access to our curriculum and our content. And just found ways to
Love it.
continue to, make those asks to the world in the nonprofit space to support us, but also apply for other grants and funding sources that will help us continue to keep our staff employed and grow the organization into the future.
Nice. So I guess, that just shows how during these times, especially in 2020, there's so many businesses out there, including yours, that were forced to shift or even just make that pivot and be like, we cannot operate how we used to operate, And like maybe in a couple of years, you might be able to go back to operating the way you were. But I even think about it now, and it's like, are you even going to want to go back to that old way of operating now that you have all these new tools, right? So not only could you apply the old tools, but now you can do the new ones as well. That's pretty good. So needless to say, your nonprofit has been doing well, or been able to sustain itself during the pandemic, where so many businesses and organizations have not been able to, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and I heard a statistic about businesses, and 1 in 5 businesses are not surviving the pandemic as of October. So, so many businesses don't succeed at the moment. So the fact that you're part of the ones that are succeeding, I think that's great. I mean, people need to hear that, like, even during these times, if you're innovative and you pivot and you're more than willing to shift with the times, you will survive.
That's right.
But yes, okay. So this is my last question, Richard. And I think so far we've learned so much, but what would you recommend to our community? Like, what podcasts or book do you live by? And what recommendations would you give to someone who wants to start a nonprofit?
Yeah, so I think the quote that I would share, which is something I've lived by, that's a pretty famous quote. I have part of it tattooed on my arm. The only tattoo I'll ever get is go confidently in the direction of your dream. And I think it's so important that we are able to vision and kind of really think about where we want our lives to go, what we want for our future. We're able to write it down, and we just do our best to move forward in a confident state of mind towards that. Even if there's unknown, even if there's uncertainty, just really move forward in that direction and kind of manifest what you want in your life moving forward. I think it'll get there. And then for anyone who wants to start a nonprofit, I would really highly encourage them to do the research and to see if it is the right decision. There are so many nonprofits that are out there in the world right now, and there might be one that is doing exactly what you want to do, and you can kind of support them or maybe get involved with them in a way to where it's really fulfilling that vision that you had, instead of really trying to start from the ground up and creating something all on your own. I think the entrepreneur in you can do it, but I also think, especially in the nonprofit space, it's really important that we focus on sustaining it. And I personally don't believe just starting nonprofits consistently is going to sustain that in the long term. But I encourage you to do the research, to reach out, and to find ways to make your passion come to life.
All right. And I got one, your book, right? Would you recommend Nonprofit for Dummies?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a great way for, if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, pick up the book, read through it, and ask yourself, like, do I want to do this? Do I want to go through all these steps? Is it worth it? Is it something I want to commit to? Because trust me, once you get to those 13 steps and you actually act on it all, the dollars aren't coming in, right? It's like you have to do so much more to get it to where you want it to be. But yeah.
Oh my God, Richard, I feel like I've learned tons more about you today, even though I've known you for a minute now, and we work together very closely. But thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited to release this episode, and hopefully we'll have you in the future as well for other stuff. Okay?
Absolutely. And congratulations on launching this and just kind of going for it and throwing it out into the world. We need to hear more stories from individuals, no matter where they are, but specifically, like you said, more stories from young Latino entrepreneurs, because it'll inspire others to kind of follow in our footsteps or really make their lives what they want them to be. So I'm happy I was able to be featured. Thanks, Randy.
Love that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your network. Your support helps our LatinX business community grow stronger with every listen, and I truly invite you to connect with us. Send us your questions, your comments, or even your own business stories to randy@rgtaxes.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep building your business, and keep growing your business mindset.